First, I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker, Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hey, how you
We did the
going?
shaking thing. Here we go, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. That worked. How are you?
There you go. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How you going?
I'm fantastic. I'm really looking forward to your talk because I've been a fan of the thing that you've built for a long time. I know this is not what the talk is about necessarily.
It
Uh, I
isn't, but it should still be good, hopefully.
I I think it comes from the same brain, and that's why I like to hear from it. Um, Please, is there anything that you have as a New Year's resolution, or something that you want to do next year?
Something that I want to do as a New Year's resolution, go back to the gym, I guess. That's super cliched, but because of COVID, I kind of stopped. And I had a good personal trainer. We had like really good things happening. And then COVID hit, and then the gym closed, and then he doesn't go to my gym anymore. So I haven't gone for a while.
The
I'd say that.
routine. Yeah,
Find a new gym trainer. Find a new personal trainer.
fair enough. 2020, the death of routine, I think, is a pretty
Yeah,
good
yeah,
subline there. Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's a really good call out because, working from home and isolation and a lot of these things come with a lot of mental health issues, and sport or exercise in general is super healthy, super important. Don't underestimate it. Us as computer nerds.
it's
Um,
true.
all right, I'm going to give you the screen. I'm going
No,
to
cool.
swap
Well,
over to the screen.
let me just smash present real quick. 1 second.
No worries. And I'll be completely quiet, and I hope it'll work out. So good luck. Not that you need it.
Ooh, maybe a little bit. So does everyone see this? Do you see this?
Yeah, yeah. All right. I'll give you the
Awesome.
screen.
Cool. Well, I'll get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Dougall. I'm a software engineer from Atlassian, and today I'm going to be talking about unwinding style delivery. And essentially, it's going to be a past, present, and future of how and why we deliver styles in the Atlassian Design System. Uh, my Twitter handle is it's Madhu, but there's not really any good content, just cat pictures now. So if you like cats, I recently got a ragdoll kitten. She's lovely. Yes, follow me for cat pictures, I suppose. Anyway, so style delivery. What exactly are we talking about? So for this, it is specifically around delivering styles from platform to product. So in my case, it is delivering styles from the Atlassian Design System to many different products across Atlassian. So that includes Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, and a few others. Trello even uses a little bit of the Atlassian Design System. So there you go. Uh, During this talk, I would implore you to keep a style lens on for this talk. And what I mean by that is specifically thinking about styles and what it means when they all come together, or when knowledge is kind of missing. Uh, Try not to focus too much on the specific technology. Try not to focus too much on, I guess, alternate ways to do things. Just keep an open mind. And yeah, we'll see where we go with this talk. So, one product. Interestingly, Atlassian didn't always have tons of products. It started with Jira, the true and blue Aussie product, and things were easy when Atlassian only had one product. It only had one repository. So all the styles that this product needed could be found within a single repository. And the product was also the platform. And the platform was basically the product as well. There isn't really any distinction outside of how the repository itself has been organized. And everything is known. So when we consider building the project, building the application, all knowledge of these styles can be known because they're just all here. It's all nicely co-located. Uh, we really get the beauty of platform and product together. And when we consider what this really resulted in was a collectively fast I guess, shippable experience. Product and platform are very close together. A change in platform can affect product in a single pull request, and that's super powerful. And then we can also consider the overall knowledge of styles, because when we build the product, all this knowledge is available. We can make really awesome sweeping optimizations at build time. But things get complicated. Companies scale. And we move from a single sane product where things are simple, but also powerful if you want as well, to a world where we want to have multiple products. So in Atlassian's case, we have Jira, we have Confluence, we have Bitbucket, and we have more products. And they're all in their own repositories. And this really introduces a lot of challenge when it comes to keeping our style lens on, understanding and doing things with these styles. Again, each product is in its own repository. So now a single product, at least in Atlassian's case, the things that it needs now are spread between 2 or more repositories. And we consider platform. Now platform can't live in a single or one product repository anymore. So platform has now been extracted. So now we have platform in its own repository being used to essentially across each product, right? We're going to reuse platform across multiple products. But what this has done is it's really distributed knowledge now. So knowledge of the styles are now spread between product and platform. And depending what technologies you're using, platform may and probably is a black box. You just grab the dependency and use it, and you don't really worry about what's inside. When we talk about platform in Atlassian, today I'm talking about the Atlassian Design System, which contains many different experiences, all inside packages, and they all contain common user interface elements. Interestingly, there are more design systems than the Atlassian Design System in Atlassian. I'm not going to talk about the other ones today, but the Atlassian user interface, AUI, has been one of the classic design systems prior to the Atlassian Design System. But that is for another talk, I think. So when we dive into the Atlassian Design System, it really is your usual suspects. And before I dig in, if you're a designer or if you're like a dev designer and you're like curious on some of these things, please ask questions at the end. This might be a little bit tech heavy, and if some of these things confuse you and I haven't done a good job explaining it, please ask questions at the end, and I'll be more than happy to try and give some insight at the end. So when we look at technology in the Atlassian Design System, we got the 3 main pillars. We have React.js for the view, and Atlassian's done a really good job at this because every main product has all aligned on React. We have script. Some people might like that, other people might not. It's a bit of a spicy meme, but in 2020, I think we're all getting close to the holy grail of TypeScript is overall. And then finally, we have CSS-in-JS. The next slide, I'll actually dive into a little bit of what that is, in case you haven't heard of it before. So CSS-in-JS, the logical answer is it allows you to write your styles in JavaScript. And we're talking true styles, so true CSS, sorry, with the power of JavaScript. So here is an example that you can see. If you've heard of styled components, this is the styled API. Very popular, very useful, very powerful. We can see an example here of when we use it, it's just importing a button. So for example, Atlas Kit button, we just import it, we use it, and we're done. There's been no setup, it just works. And finally, we have a button. Fantastic. Now, when we consider CSS-in-JS, it really has taken over in Atlassian. Every product is using it, platform is using it. You won't find a single CSS file anymore, at least in the modern repositories. And this has given us a lot of benefits. Platform has been able to move much faster. but it's also obviously taken away from the core fundamentals. Give me a CSS file, give me my separation of concerns. But we'll dive into that in a little bit. So we've gone through the technology. Let's talk about the delivery. The Atlassian Design System is published to NPM. And it has many packages, all installed a la carte. So if you don't need everything, you just install what you need. And everything, because we're using CSS-in-JS, because everything is just JavaScript, it's all a JavaScript bundle. So this has, I guess, empowered us to be able to ship things without products needing to configure anything. And it really is for the main point of going faster. You don't need to worry about this anymore. You just need to worry about your experiences that maybe we've lost a little bit. We'll keep going and we'll see. And obviously consuming. So just import it, use it. Again, thanks to CSS-in-JS, products don't need to set up anything. So we've gone from a single repository with a single product where platform and product are as close as can be. And then we've gone into a repository where, we've gone into multiple products where each product is its own repository and platform is its own repository. What has this given us? Well, each product can individually move faster. You don't need to worry about anyone else. Platform doesn't need to worry about products, at least for the initial commit. You just iterate and get productive, I suppose. Everyone is individually productive. But unfortunately, as a collective, specifically on platform, we actually move slower. I make a change to platform, and because platform and product are separate, it takes longer for the changes from platform to get to product. And really, again, depending on the technology, because we're using CSS and JS, black box knowledge. So there's not really like a good full picture understanding of what exactly the styles are. Yes, you can use modern techniques to try and, I guess, reduce the pain. So for example, if any developers out there, you can use code splitting and I guess reduce the pain, but it kind of doesn't really help in fully understanding. So let's continue. This is how the platform is shipped at Atlassian today. We have a big monorepo for the platform. Each package is shipped to NPM. Products consume the NPM packages, and then they also write their experiences on top of that. You can really just imagine, like, this is almost how everyone else makes their own experiences, to be honest. Like, imagine if you're using Chakra UI or Material UI. It's almost the same thing, at least in the same developer experience. So the obvious case is, if given enough time, infinite resources, why don't we just put everything back into one repository? So we still have multiple products. We still have, but if we look at the previous example where everything is in its own repository, we shift that. And now everything is in its own repository. All styles can be found within one repository. We have this knowledge again. Product is now platform again. There's no distinction, at least when it comes to delivering the styles, because everything is available in a single atomic commit. We don't have it distributed. It's all there. And realistically, everything is known again because first party and third party, it's all in one repository. So we have a lot of power there. But unfortunately, backing track 1 second, and this results in the initial understanding when we were back in one repository with one product. It's collectively fast. Product and platform can move together very quickly. One pull request can change both platform and product. And we also have overall knowledge. We can make sweeping optimizations at build time. But this isn't for today. This really is a hard problem, and you'll find only the biggest, meatiest companies really try and get this right. And even when they're on the outside getting this right, they still have a lot of investment to make this work. It's a hard problem, and it's not a problem that Atlassian's going to be solving today. So if we consider that we've gone from one product, multiple products, in many repos, multiple products in one repo. What else can we do to bring styles closer? Well, we can assume that products will stay in their own repositories for a while. This is an assumption, but it's also a fact. Like this isn't going to change anytime soon. We also have another assumption that products will not fundamentally change how they consume platforms. So we're still going to be shipping to NPM. They're still going to be importing JavaScript bundles, and they'll still want it to work without any friction. And then the final assumption is products and platform will not conduct large-scale rewrites of their styles. And this is a doozy because we have a lot of developers at Atlassian, a lot of product developers, and even platform as well. It would be an expensive, I guess, experiment to try and rewrite all this. And it's a very hard sell. So this is one assumption that can't really change. So multiple repositories, we can't do anything about it. Platform extracted, we can't do anything about it. But what we can do is try and bring more knowledge back to products. So platform, obviously, by definition, will not know what product it's going into, but products know what they are consuming. So then when we're building a product, what if we had more knowledge about all the different experiences that we're consuming, and then we can do something with that knowledge? So the goal, the dreamland for the short term anyway, is bringing a distributed platform and products close with no disruption. So when we think about distributed styling, so we're still shipping to NPM, and they're still installed as dependencies to a product. They're still consumed the same way. Yep. And for build time knowledge, ideally, at build time, all knowledge of styles is gathered, and then we can make sweeping optimizations to both platform and product. So obviously now we're getting closer to the end of this problem, and I guess one of Atlassian's forays to try and solve this. So yes, this was mentioned earlier, compiled React. So we've been working on our own CSS-in-JS solution. I think 2020 has definitely been many things. There was obviously the fires early on, COVID hit, and everyone started writing their own CSS-in-JS libraries. So we're no exception. We started writing our own one as well. And yes, build-time atomic CSS-in-JS baked and ready to serve. So before I go into this, by the way, there's only going to be a few slides of this. This talk isn't really about compiled, more about just the problem of delivering styles. But obviously, I'll be able to answer any questions you have at the end of the presentation. So what is compiled wanting to do? So it wants to bring styles closer. So products should have all styles known and available if they so please. And this is primarily at build time. At build time, it doesn't matter where we're getting styles from. If they're from platform, if they're from product, doesn't matter. We extract information and do something with that. It also doesn't change a thing. So all CSS-in-JS APIs that you know and love should and will be available. Like I was touching on previously with the potential rewrite experiment, it's just fundamentally too expensive for us to do that, especially if we consider the lesser maintained areas of Atlassian. So that's not really an area that any of us want to go in. But continuing on, it's also performance focused. So performance should be as fast as possible. And then finally, extraction to CSS. So we have all this knowledge of styles and specifically CSS-in-JS styles. So now at build time, we can do interesting things with them. And one of the interesting things is extracting to CSS. So obviously at build time, we can optimize this, extract all styles out of JavaScript, produce an external CSS file, and then have better performance and smaller bundles. So this is actually coming soon. I'm actually hoping to be releasing, or I guess re-releasing the library very soon. It's still considered experimental, but it's been quite fun working on it internally, and I'm hoping to talk more about it in the future. So the last slide before we can get into questions is, but Michael, isn't it like if we're just extracting the CSS, we're just doing what we did before? And it's pretty true. We're just, what is old is new again. We've essentially gone from a CSS file and JavaScript being two different things. We've then included our CSS and JavaScript, mushed them together, and now we're trying to go back, but keep the same developer experience. And I guess try and get into other goodies along the way. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to talk more about this library and I guess more technical details later, but not for today. Yes. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was awesome. There's lots of questions that I've gotten through various channels here, and I'm going to just throw them at you. First of all, you didn't give us a trigger warning when you talked about 2020 as a recap. That just PTSD all over the place. So
sorry.
I hope people are okay. The first question was, how do you manage change of styles across so many products? I guess that was a very early question. There were a couple of things that you addressed there, but I'll let you talk.
So this was, how do we manage change of styles?
Yeah, over so many products. So I guess
over so many products. So that's I guess a good question above the style delivery. It's definitely a tricky one. And I'll answer this, I guess, in how I imagine it. And if this doesn't answer well, let me know, and I can clarify some things as well. So one of the main things we do is we have a lot of design guidelines around how experiences should be. Above that, we actually have design sparring. So twice weekly, or I think fortnightly, platform and product come together and they spar different experiences to try and, I guess, align on how the designs are. Yes. I think one thing we should clarify is, did you want a design answer or a developer answer? Because they're, I guess, two different potential avenues we can go down.
Yeah, that's all right. I think it's probably, as you said in the beginning, above the mechanism, and it's more a process answer that you probably can't answer in the scope of this. There's a question that came in the chat from Mark Dougall. Hey, if you use... Not that you should.
Sorry.
If you use JavaScript utilities in your CSS, for instance, like Polish, do they get removed in production?
So this is something that I would love to get into. I would say the theory is yes, they would. So for example, if you had a static string, so say we have I don't know, like the color blue, and I want to lighten that color by 20%. That we can definitely get rid of, and it would just statically resolve to the I guess resulting value. So for example, if we can consider the older technologies like less Sass, even stylus or stylus, I think stylus, not the CSS-in-JS library, the stylus with an I, like they have this capability as well, but obviously not in the CSS-in-JS approach. So yes, too long didn't read. Yes, we could, but I can imagine there would be edge cases today where the library would end up falling back to a runtime CSS variable.
Right. Interesting. And didn't want to go the CSS variable route for any of that logic, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Another question. He'd also like to hear about your thoughts of the trade-offs between monorepos versus shipping a single package. Are there any challenges with your approach? Would you choose the same architecture again in a different project?
So I think if Atlassian had all their products in one repository, I don't even think this library would exist, to be honest. Maybe we would have worked with Linaria to try and, I guess, elevate their library to something different. But without, I guess, constraints as a company, where every repository is in its own, every product is in its own repository, platform is its own repository. Those constraints mean that we need to build around them, which is why I guess the core architecture of compiled has, I guess, been thought up and executed on. Yeah.
Okay, and another question around technology things, and then there's a couple other questions around other things. How would you compare, I guess, on a philosophical basis, your library and your approach to something like Tailwind or utility classes?
Sure. It's interesting you should say that, because I think only a few people, at least if you're a developer, you would have picked up on the build time atomic CSS thing. So if anyone remembers, so Max Stoiber did a blog post recently where he was talking about why he loves Tailwind, and then he was comparing that to let's get the best of both worlds by using Tailwind with style components, using the Tailwind Babel macro. For, I guess, clarity on what that does, it essentially transforms Tailwind calls to an object, a JavaScript object, which then can be passed into CSS-in-JS. So specifically for this one, it would be style components. When we consider comparing Tailwind to compiled, they're like, if we think of like a delivery mechanism of how the styles are delivered to consumers, so not products anymore, just browsers. Each CSS declaration has its own CSS rule. So like think of like a class name. So if I have like 5 different values that I want to use, CSS declarations, that would be 5 different class names on the HTML element, which is essentially the same as what Tailwind does today, except the difference is Tailwind is human readable and doesn't come with the same behavior as CSS-in-JS, whereas compiled does give you all the behavior that you know and love with CSS-in-JS. So specifically, I'm talking like template interpolations, conditional CSS rules, just literally mixing JavaScript with your CSS. Essentially, you can use it the same as you would any other CSS-in-JS library. Yes. I hope I wasn't rambling. Does that answer your question? Do you want more?
No, I think that does answer my question. It's interesting to look at that from that angle. As you said, old things are new, new things are old, and we all reinvent things. Another question that we haven't heard yet, I'm just going through my list here. What can you do with the styles once you extracted them, if you're still supposed to create styles in JavaScript?
So all the style, and I guess before I answer this again, I apologize to any designers here who are like, code, so hopefully Jess's talk is more designer friendly, because I feel like this is very developer heavy right now. So by nature, styles defined with compiled, are calculated at build time. So what that means is at runtime, you can't create new CSS. And because of that constraint, we're actually able to do a lot of interesting things. And one of the interesting things is extract to CSS. So like platform would build their components, and then like they would ship components that have the compiled baked into the JavaScript. Platform would consume those components, and then they would, at build time, be able to extract and remove all of the CSS in the JavaScript, and then push it to a single style sheet, specifically a where if you used the same declaration and you would only use the single one, you wouldn't have duplicates. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, let's give that a tick. We've had a follow-up question from Mark there. So when he was asking about the trade-offs between monorepos and shipping single packages, he meant like shipping a button as its own package, for example.
Oh, this one's spicy. Sure. Atlas Kit. So the platform that the Atlassian Design System is published against is the NPM organization Atlas Kit. This is basically in direct contrast to how AUI, so if you remember when I mentioned Atlassian has more than one design system, the Atlassian user interface, that is a single package. Like anything in life, there's pros and cons to delivering either a single package with all your design system component libraries, things, behavior in there, versus each one being its own package. Like the microservice world, I think amusingly Atlas Kit and a lot of component libraries and design systems, if they're shipped as a single package or multiple packages, it's essentially a distributed monolith. Where on the surface, it's like, oh, look at all these like nice microservices. You can import one, use it. So easy. I don't have to get everything else I don't need. I'll just import the things I need. But unfortunately, while that has made upgrading really easy, because before, for example, in Jira, it would be very hard to upgrade from like AUI 3 to AUI 4, because there would be a ton of breaking changes, and it would be very difficult to essentially upgrade all those dependencies at once in Jira. Because at Jira's scale, we're talking hundreds of developers, thousands of pages. It's just all in one repository. It's fundamentally almost impossible to do this in a time-efficient way. In separate repositories, obviously, if it was in a single repository, it'd be a different story. So the single package so the multiple packages has made upgrading easy. I just want to upgrade button, so I'll upgrade button, done. And then maybe like a week from now, okay, we're ready to upgrade modal dialogue, and then you'll upgrade modal dialogue. That has made like the upgrading journey much easier, much less pain, but it's caused, I would say, interesting subtleties that you wouldn't realize. One example is modern React context not matching up between different major versions, and I guess other gotchas as well. So my go-to is lovingly saying that we have a distributed monolith. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I've personally also run into these issues, and the hardest thing is I see monorepos or single packages as one of those delivery mechanisms that people can opt into rather than you force them onto things. But yeah, it's all got pros and cons. One last question from Matt. Sure. If you're adding a constraint that you don't allow new CSS at runtime, how will you be able to roll this out at Atlassian? Will products have to make changes to accommodate this new?
No, they won't. And the reason is because dynamic styles, well, I should say dynamic declarations. So for example, we want a background color to be changed via a prop, for example. When you use that, gets replaced with a CSS variable behind the scenes. So at runtime, you just change that CSS variable value is changed to the specific color that you pass in. When it comes to customization, that is an interesting topic because obviously it's impossible to create CSS at runtime. But it's an interesting constraint, I think, that has, I don't want to say workarounds because that makes it sound dirty, has solutions. For us, it means that we get better performance because we guarantee that CSS can't be made at runtime unless you use your own CSS-in-JS library that is at runtime. But for this and for our design system, like we want to evolve it into a place that is, I guess, more stable and good. Like Seek, for example, has a good tweets by Mark, I think, has allowed us to see the light when it comes to this kind of thing. Previously, Atlassian, a few of the components in the Atlassian Design System had free range overrides. Just pass me a new object that looks like CSS and I'll apply that. But then having infinite customization has, again, pros and cons. Are we a white label design system? Not really. So at this point, it comes to creating first class, I guess, customization points or theming points, more likely, because it does come down to what are the common scenarios that products would really want to customize. And at this point, it's primarily color and spacing. So at that point, if we provide rich CSS variables in some form, hand waving over and what the API would look like. Would this be props? Would this be using CSS variables directly for another time? But that would at least give a little bit more control back to the design system, I think.
And one of the pros that I always think about when I'm using CSS variables is when you make a change, it doesn't re-render anything in React. It just redraws the browser. So you're basically separating things again, which is kind of nice from a performance perspective. That's it. Cool. We've run out of questions. That was a fantastic talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. I hope you all liked it. I was really trying to figure out how to frame this talk tonight, which is why I went for the style. I thought purely technical talk. Maybe I'll save that for React Sydney.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your break. Happy holidays.
Thanks. Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.
Indeed. See you.